I think we're on. All right. Hey guys, it is Glenn Rolfe. I'm doing a little video here, Q&A, quick sesh. We're going to talk about some inspirations and stuff like that. I got some questions from Twitter. I'm starting some promotions for my upcoming works, starting with August Eyes, which comes out this summer. You can, if you're a reviewer, blogger, bookstagrammer, YouTube book reviewer, you can go to netgalley.com and search Glenn Rolfe or August Eyes and request a copy from Flametree. If they can't get you one, or you don't use NetGalley and you can, you're willing to do a review off a PDF file, I can, if you get a hold of me, however you're watching this, and give me your email address and your name and your website or YouTube channel or whatever, I can see if I can get you a PDF directly from Flametree. That said, let's get into this. I'm using my laptop, which isn't my best. I like to use my phone for these things, but you work with what you got. So the first question, I got like 10 questions off Twitter here. First one is, what are your biggest writing pet peeves? For me, as a writer who works full-time, has 3 kids, wife, we both work opposite schedules. So she's at home with them at nighttime, dealing with the tired, cranky kids, versions of our kids, and trying to get supper made and all that. I am the morning guy, daytime guy. So I tend to try to get some of the chores done. Some days are better than others, but I try to get the dishes done and all that. So for me, finding time to write is the really hard part, especially when the kids have been home from school. My schedule would have been perfect for writing, but they just started going back to school over the last month or so. Hopefully things will go up there. So my pet peeve is finding the time to write, not having enough time to write, having all these ideas and not having the time to sit down with them. Getting in the zone, it takes me like half an hour when I'm writing to get into, totally let the world around me disappear and just go into my story. And, a lot of times I get the knock on the door, someone pushing through the door, it's one of my kids or something needing something from me. And that's always hard because that pulls you out of the zone. And then you got to work to get back in. So, trying to write from home during the day, whenever. So yeah, trying to get knocked out of the zone or getting into the zone, that's a hard thing to do. Pet peeves for me, reading wise, I need a character to root for. I always try to give somebody at least a couple of characters to pull for through a story, and if you don't have that, then personally for me, I can't do it. All right, which of your novels or novellas would you like to see on the big screen one day? This may shock people, but I think if I had the choice, if it was totally up to me and I could say this is getting made, Abram's Bridge, which is my first novella, which is a mystery, small town thriller with a supernatural aspect to it. I think it would be really good. I think it'd have a broader audience and have it could reach more people. I think more people would enjoy it than some of my other stuff. I'd love to see that done. Abram's Bridge. And then the second one, I was just thinking of Land of Bones is a collection of mine, and it's got a story in there that's a small novella called Too Much of a Dead Thing. And I always liked the story. I always loved the characters. It was really interesting writing that one. But when I heard the audio edition that Fireside Horror put out, and I heard Matt Godfrey's performance, I said, I can almost see it. Matt brought these characters to life, like all the voices and stuff that he does. He's one of the best audio guys out there, in my opinion. If you guys haven't checked out the audio edition of Land of Bones, you don't have to like my stuff to get into this. These guys, there's 14 different narrators that all took turns with my stories, and it's phenomenal. Land of Bones, check it out, audio edition, Fireside Horror. So Too Much of a Dead Thing and Abram's Bridge, those are the two I'd pick. And if I could have my choice of a special effects team, the first one, Abram's Bridge, wouldn't really need special effects, I don't think, not much. But Too Much of a Dead Thing, I could picture the people from The Walking Dead working on that. with some of the unnatural elements that are in there. I think that would be cool. Let's see. Do you listen to music when you write? Yes, I do. I listen to hard rock, heavy metal. If it's in the 80s, I try to listen, like if it's set in the 80s, I'll set an 80s playlist. Set in the 90s, a 90s playlist. You know, try to help you get into the time frame setting as you can. A lot of times I find myself now listening to soundtracks, the scores or whatever. John Carpenter's, all of his stuff, The Fog, the Halloween movies. I think there's one like the Lost Anthems or Lost. It's an anthology. It's like he's got 3 of them out now. Those are really good, great mood setting music. I also like the soundtracks to It, the new It, and A Cure for Wellness. I don't remember the guy's name that does those. It's Benjamin something. Look those up. A Cure for Wellness and It. Those are great scores to work with as well. What's your favorite horror subgenre? This I do not have. I do not have a favorite horror subgenre. I like most horror. I obviously like werewolves and vampires. I like the classics. I'm not afraid to do the classics. I don't care if some people think they're overdone. I think every voice that brings one of those tropes to life, hopefully they inject it with their own attitudes and voices and characters. So I think it should be different, and you can't be afraid if you're going to take on one of those. Some people love to stay right to the classics. There's nothing wrong with that. I personally like to make them my own and play around with them. You got to know the rules to break the rules, and you can't be afraid to break the rules. So I'm down for anything. What book was your biggest inspiration to start writing? For me, that was On Writing by Stephen King. I had flirted with writing in 7th grade, then forgot about it because of music, and then read On Writing after I started reading again after I was a teenager, and I just did some of the exercises that King has in the book, and I felt like, wow, this is fun, and this feels like I could do something. And then I went back to my bands, and forgot about it again for about another 10 years. And then once the band stuff was done, then I said, well, I've got these ideas, and I kind of started scribbling around, and that's what got me writing. But when I think of one book in particular, besides, if I think of an actual fiction book, I think of Salem's Lot, because it's got great monsters, great characters, great setting, great atmosphere, and heart. The relationship with Ben and Susan, to me, I loved it. I love it every time I read it. A good love story and a horror story makes it, I think, so much better. So if you get those 5 things, then you can add in sex and guts and tearing people's faces off and stuff like that. But you don't need those. As long as you get those 5 things that Salem's Lot, I think, has, that's a good foundation for any book. Yeah. So let's see. And who are some of your influences? I'd say Stephen King, obviously. I think another one for me would be Richard Lehman. And just reading his stuff, and I've read a lot of it, you can tell he had a lot of fun writing this stuff. You can tell when he's writing, he was just going for it. He was having a glorious time in his imagination, and it shows. He never took himself super serious, but he was serious, you know. And that showed me that you've got to be willing to just disappear into your story, let it go. You know, on the first draft, especially, you should never be holding back on the first draft. Let it get as crazy as your mind is willing to take it. And if you start thinking, I don't know if I should go there, you should probably go there. You can always soften the edges, cut things, change things, you know, as you revise it and edit it. So Richard Lehman really gave me, when I started writing, with those 5 King things, then I took in Lehman's, like, just have fun and go for it attitude. And I'd say those 2 are my bigger influences. I mean, I love Ronald Malfi. Also got me thinking about being descriptive without being over descriptive. He's like the master for me at that. Like, just sets up enough, just gives you enough so that you can see the room you're in. You don't have to see every detail in the room, just see the room you're in. But King talks about that in On Writing too, but I think Malfi's got any of his books, pick them up. He's a great example of that in every book that he's done. Let's see. And then we got one more. I got one more. What has been the inspiration behind August Eyes? Well, that's the new book. Like I said, you can get it on NetGalley right now if you're a reviewer. That one came about when I moved back home to like my home area where I grew up. The town next to it has a lot of graveyards, and I was reading Nosferatu by Joe Hill at the time, and he had Christmas Land in there. And I said, well, I just fucking moved to Graveyard Land. And then as soon as I said that, and it said in my brain, as soon as it said it, it was like, this has to be a book. And I kind of came up with some of the first few scenes that are in the book. I always scribble them down. And at the time, I said, this is really exciting. This is a little bit different from what I normally do. It's really exciting though, but I don't think I can write the kind of book I'm imagining in my head. I don't think as a writer, I'm ready to go there yet. I don't think I'm ready to attempt something that big. And it was out of my element at the time. So I set that aside. And then the next year, Jonathan Janz put out Wolfland. And I'm like, well, we got Christmas Land, Wolfland. I can't put it out now anyways, because it would just sound like everybody else's book. And then eventually Duncan Ralston put out Ghostland. So now I'm like, well, I'm definitely changing the name. So it changed to August Eyes, who's one of the main characters in it. I'm glad I didn't write it or attempt to write it back when the idea first came to me. That was like 2014, because all of the stuff I've gone through since then influenced what ended up in the book that I ended up writing in 2020, which was a hell of a time to try to write a book. Some people were able to just disappear into their stories. My whole world was flipped upside down like everybody else, or a lot of people's. The kids were at home all day, by the end of the night, too tired to write. So it was pretty hard, but I managed to get it done. And I'm happy with the result. I had therapy for a little bit a couple years ago. That ended up working its way into this. I watched a lot of Nightmare on Elm Street and Shocker. I watched a couple of times. And that kind of works its way into the dream aspects, and the serial killer that I've got in here he's not like Horace Pinker. He's going after something different, but I kind of used the vehicle that Horace Pinker used to get to this dream world that I have. Spirit world kind of thing. It's more of a spirit world than a dream world, but it's kind of a mix of both blending. And doing that, trying that to me was out of my element, but I pushed myself to go for it. Over the course of the last couple of years, my wife introduced me to the podcast My Favorite Murder, and I've always loved unsolved mysteries and true crime documentaries, but these two ladies just like that do this podcast are amazing and entertaining, and the stories pull you in, but then you just go to listen and hang out with them too. And that really got my true crime love going again, and that worked its way into the book. The serial killer aspect is in the book, but it's not like the soul aspect, so I've never called this a serial killer novel. That's one of the facets in this book with these characters, one of the characters and areas in the book. It's an integral part, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a serial killer novel. Some of it takes place in the 90s, but it's mostly now. My wife was a social worker through all these in-between years here, so that works its way in there. So I hope you guys like it when you read it. It's very hard for me to describe because it's an interesting story. It's not like anything I've really written before, besides the pop culture references, which if you've read my stuff, those are going to be in there. Some people love it, some people hate it. It's just what I do. It's just how I work. So that's out August 17th, August Eyes, Flame Tree Press. You can order it any place that you pre-order books. You can get an ebook, pre-order the ebook, the paperback or the hardcover. Comes out this summer. Until then, you can go to NetGalley and request it from Flame Tree, or you can message me Give me your email address. If you can take a PDF, I can probably get you that from Flametree. So yeah, I'm going to do a bunch of these between now and this summer, or when the book comes out. So if you guys ever have questions that you want to see me answer, just drop them. I'll probably do some live ones too at some point. But for now, we're just trying it this way. And as you can probably see, I didn't say I'm at work. It's Sunday night. It's pretty dead. I've got my monitor and my phone in case those, as you heard, it's quiet this whole 15 minutes almost. Everyone's checked in. So yeah, we'll do this again. Like I said, if you have any questions, leave them, comments, all that good stuff. Message me if you need a PDF and you've got a blog. You got to have a blog or a website or a Bookstagram that's, you know, popular, or a YouTube book page, book review page. Any of those things qualify. I can definitely get you the PDF. You don't have to have a million fans, but if you just do them and you have a site, reach out to me and I can probably hook you guys up. Like I said, thanks for watching this. If you watched for the whole 15-16 minutes, thank you. If not, that's fine too. We'll be doing more of them. So have a good night, stay safe, and I'll see you guys around.